Hi folks, we're going to get started with net present value. So in managerial accounting, we're going to have screening decisions and preference decisions. So a screening decision is what you do first. You're deciding whether a proposed project passes a preset hurdle. So this would be one of the uses, or one of the ways we screen projects is net present value, which is what we're going to do in this video. A preference decision is done after all the screening decisions have been done, and we're going to decide which proposed project will be the best to invest in. And one of the ways we do this is with the profitability index, and I'll show you how it works a little bit later. The information for the problem that we're going to do a screening decision using net present value. We're going to have cash inflows and outflows of these items. So we're going to have sales revenue every year for 5 years, $40,000 a year. Cost of goods sold is every year for 5 years at $250,000. Operating expenses every year for 5 years of $70,000. Before we can have any of those inflows and outflows, we're going to have to buy the equipment today for $120,000. And we're going to need to provide $200,000 of working capital right now in order to make this project work. After 4 years, we anticipate at the end of year 4 having to spend $10,000 for overhauling the equipment, and then we plan to sell it at the end of year 5 for $20,000. The working capital at the end of year 5 and when the equipment is sold will be released back to be used in other projects, and that's $200,000. So the items that happen every single year are referred to as annuities, present value of an annuity. So we're going to use these factors to multiply by these dollars to determine what the value is today of this project. All of the items that happen now will be multiplied by a factor of 1 because a dollar today is a dollar today. For years 4 and 5, the things that happen there, that would be a one-time payment or receipt. So that is a single sum. So we want to use the values for present value of a single sum for those numbers at the appropriate year. So 4 and 5 will be using those last two. Alright, so to determine the net present value of this particular project, we purchase the equipment today. So that is $120,000 at 1, and that's an outflow of money. The working capital needed is $200,000 today, and that is an outflow. The annual cash inflows. So if I took the 400 minus 250 minus 70, that gets me to an $80,000 net cash inflow. So my $80,000 net cash inflow times the 5th year of the annuity, 3.791, is going to give me $303,280. That's today's value of $80,000 received every year for 5 years. The overhaul of the equipment in year 4 is a $10,000 outflow times year 4's present value of a single sum, 0.683, is $6,830. And the salvage value we expect to get when we sell the equipment is $20,000 at the end of year 5. So I'm going to use 0.621 and multiply it by the $20,000. Actually, that 20 salvage value would be a $20,000 inflow of money. So I've messed this up, so let me fix it right now. So I'm going to add instead of subtract. Salvage value is an inflow. Okay, so I'm going to get $12,420. That's what it would be worth today in today's dollars. And the working capital that is released is $200,000 times 0.621. is 124,200. So my net present value is 113,070. So the way you interpret net present value is if it is 0, you have earned exactly, in this case it would be 10% because we're using a 10% rate. When you have positive net present value, you have earned more than 10%, or whatever the percent is in your problem. If it's negative, if net present value is negative, then you have earned less than 10%. All right, so let's keep moving with other items. The Project Profitability Index is a preference decision. So we have decided that this project has met our screen. It has passed our test of does it make at least 10%? And it does. It makes more than 10%. So the Project Profitability Index is net present value divided by the investment required. So 113,070 divided by 120 is 0.94. And the way you interpret the Project Profitability Index is that the higher the index, the more desirable the project. So in order to know if you're really going to do this particular project or not, you must have another project so that you can make a comparison, especially if you have limited funds, because you can invest in project A or project B, and you want the one that first has met the screening, and then second, if you have more than one that passed the screening, then you want to rank them in order of their profitability. So this would probably be ranked near the top since that's a pretty high number. Okay, so that takes care of those two pieces. Another way to look at projects is with the payback method. As long as your cash flows are the same, there's an annual, you take the investment required divided by the annual net cash flow, inflow, and it tells you, in this case, if we invest 120 and we're going to get $80,000 back a year, then we're going to recover our cost in a year and a half. That's not too bad. Okay, so you can use payback method. Another way you can do it is you can come up with if the cash inflows are different than every year, then you have to come up with a different way to work the payback. And you're going to have to actually figure out how long it takes to come up with your money. And it does not use any kind of discounting. So that's one of the drawbacks to the payback method. The simple rate of return is computed differently depending on whether you have a revenue or just a cost savings. The example I'm going to give here is of revenue. So if we have our annual incremental net operating income and we divide it by our initial investment less salvage value. So we need to calculate a couple of different things. Let's start. All we worked with above was the cash that came in and out. So now let's work with operating income. So I need to take my total revenue of the 400 minus the cost of goods sold of 250 and minus the cash operating expenses that we used earlier of 70. Now to get operating income, we also need to subtract out our depreciation, which is cost of 120 minus our salvage value of 20 divided by the years of 5, so that gives us $20,000. Cost minus salvage will be our denominator in our fraction. So the incremental expenses are 340 subtracted from the 400,000 incremental revenue gives us incremental net operating income. So the incremental operating income of 60 divided by cost minus salvage of 100 gives us a 60% return on our investment. That's not bad, is it? Okay, I hope that this video is helpful to you, and we'll talk about something else next time. Thank you. Bye.